How many of you remember when you first started playing the guitar and one of the first things that you were excited about was learning a song? You heard something that somebody else played, you heard something on the radio, and you wanted to be able to pick up the guitar and start playing that just so you could recreate what you were hearing. Well, I'm right there with you. The same thing happened in the early stages of when I started playing. For me, like you've heard so many times before, it happened to be heavy metal that I was listening to a good bit. So whenever I was listening to Metallica and then I got a guitar of my own, I thought how great this is going to be able to play these songs that I've heard so many times before. So there you are, practicing the guitar every night, and your fingertips are hurting, and no matter what that pain feels like in that moment, it does not override that feeling of accomplishment that you know that you're going to have once you're able to play a song that you've wanted to play. So you spend hours and hours trying to get down the right fingering to make sure everything's ringing out right, that you can play it fast enough. And then that progresses on to now you can play it in front of your friends or you can play it in front of your family, and you feel this real big sense of accomplishment in what it is that you have just done. And as with that accomplishment, that sense that you completed something and the reaction that you're getting from peers and family members alike, that engages this momentum where you want to push forward and continue to learn more and more to the point to where maybe you're considered the go-to person who plays guitar. Now, how many of you can relate to what I'm saying? So this is a common story, but somewhere along the lines, for some of us, we tend to drift away from learning songs and we start to get overwhelmed with all the other things that are out there that we could potentially do with the instrument and ways that we can improve. Before I go on though, make sure that you subscribe, hit the notification bell, and don't forget to check the description below where you're going to see lessons and courses that I offer. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. Let me know what you would like for me to talk about in future episodes. So what happened? What happened to being okay with learning songs? What happened to the journey of trying to progress and be able to play as many songs as you possibly could, all the things that you were hearing that just sounded so interesting to you? For some, that's not an issue at all. Some of you, playing songs has been the main thing that you've continued to progress along with, and that's great. Others, like myself, drifted away and started to get caught up in the other side of the guitar. That side of the guitar that I think that we're all familiar with, the one that you're working on your left hand technique, your right hand technique. You're consumed by the choice of how you're going to pick on the guitar, alternate picking, economy picking. Now you've found that there's tapping and you have these strum patterns you want to do, and then there's fingerstyle, and then there's so many different chords that you can learn, and then there's all these scales that you can learn, and then there's these licks, and then you start to find that there's all of these resources available, much more now today than for me as a teenager, but there's all these resources that will show you how to develop your technique and your speed. And then there's those that show you how to become better improvisers. And the list goes on and on and on. And that in itself is a trap that so many of us, like me, would get caught up in. So why is that? Well, I think that we want to be able to progress on the instrument. We find something that catches our attention. For me, a technique side of the instrument has always been appealing. Hearing someone like a Joe Stump play, if any of you are familiar with the 2001 Shred Odyssey album of Joe Stump, you know what I'm talking about. That first track, if you're not so sure what I'm talking about, go check it out. When I heard that type of playing, where this guy is consistently just playing for, I can't even remember how many minutes long the song is. I don't know, 6, 8 minutes. Just continuous playing. And I could hear, because I'd put on headphones, and I could hear the pick attack. Or someone like a John Petrucci, same thing. Satriani with his legato. Steve Vai with all the craziness that he's able to do with the guitar. And so many more other players. That's not even counting the jazz people I got interested in. That's not even counting the saxophone players. So there's so many paths and artists that you hear, and there's something about them that catches your attention. And for some, it's technique. And for me, it was technique. That's what I latched on to. So I would spend countless hours over the years working on things just like alternate picking, some legato-based things. I would work on trying to play particular lines as fast as I could, because to me there was so much of a satisfaction in being able to play that because I heard that person do it. And for some reason, it wasn't the song. I drifted away from that. It wasn't the example like I'd given, Joe Stump's Shred Odyssey, being able to play exactly what he played. That would have been cool. But it was being able to do something that sounded like what I just heard. I wanted to be able to execute something like that on the guitar. It was the concept of what was happening that caught my attention. So what's the downside? Well, when you go down that path, you start to lose the bigger picture and you start to focus on the minute. And you get so caught up in so many facets. And I do think that it can be a good thing that you get caught up in those particular things. That way you can develop whatever it is that is piquing your interest in playing the instrument. I don't think that you should run from it. And if you would go to a teacher that would happen to say, you know what, I don't think that's a good idea, you should back away from that, I don't think that that's good advice at all. I think that there's other things that you can do to practice to round out what it is that you're doing. But if you've hit a point in your practice where that type of approach on focusing on something like a technique is your thing, then go for it, then do it. But I will say there's a drawback. And that is, do you remember that younger you that started playing, that wanted to play those songs? Well, now you've immersed yourself so much in the technical aspect of the instrument that when someone asks you to play something for them, you can play your fancy licks and you can do your shred stuff and you can impress them to some degree with that. However, you can't play something that is a song unless maybe you make up an etude or something that sounds musical. So it doesn't sound like a song. You're not playing music in that same way that you were in the beginning. And that is something that can really stunt your progress as you develop. At some point, because it can be difficult, you can become obsessed with this. At some point, you need to draw yourself back away and work on songs again. This is the third year for me with this career in teaching full-time at a high school. Now, I've been teaching for about 15 years, more serious teaching. You know, when I really consider it to be, I'm actually like teaching and making money and I'm doing this. So it's been 15 years. And this position that I'm at right now has really pushed me to go back into learning songs and not being so focused on the minutia. Now, over the years, I was showing students songs too, but there's something different about this because there's group settings. And in these group settings, we work on songs. That way we can perform them in a concert. So it's pushing me to go back to learn the songs and not just learn what a guitar part's doing, but learn the whole of what the song is. That way I can communicate and help to the best of my ability those students that need help in understanding how to play the particular thing that we're playing, or maybe need some advice, some different ways maybe to play something on the instrument so it actually makes sense and it's not some kind of weird technique thing, really iron out the details. So this has pushed me to go back into what it was that gave me joy in the beginning. I've talked before about improvising and free improvisation and working on things overall to improve your knowledge of the instrument and your ability to improvise. But I can't tell you how many times I've made the mistake of not actually applying a lot of things to the songs that I would be performing. Because there's this obsessive nature to working on something that I cannot get, that my attention will go fully there before I have to say, you know what? This is great. I'm going to continue to work on it. However, I need to back away because it's about working on the songs right now. So don't forget that the song is the thing. Don't forget about what the bigger picture is in the creation of what you're doing. Your individual voice goes to that bigger picture. You want to get better overall? Working on the technique side is great. But you want to get better overall? Work on your repertoire. And along those lines, you'll also be working on things that have to do with the language of the music. Not being caught up in your own head about these ideas that you have. You'll start to branch out and you'll start to understand how you can actually apply the things that you're working on to a real life situation in a song, in a context where you're playing with other people. And that's the bigger picture. So when you're practicing, before you get too caught up in your usual routine or the habits that you've formed, don't forget to take time to actually learn songs. Put your focus there. Listen to the recordings in an in-depth approach. Listen for all the different facets. And that right there can greatly increase your ability as a musician. I would argue that would be, I would say, a bit more important than just focusing on being incredibly technical on the instrument. Hey, I hope that you found this video useful. Make sure to share it with others. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell. Check the links down below for lessons and courses that I offer. Also, leave a comment. Let me know what you would like for me to talk about in future episodes, and I'll catch you next time.